Picture this, May 1945. Allied soldiers are walking through the gates of liberated camps across Europe, and what they find changes everything. The stench of death, the walking skeletons, the mass graves, horrors that demanded answers. But more than that, they demanded justice. In the months that followed, something unprecedented began to happen. Thousands of camp personnel who thought they'd never face consequences for their actions suddenly found themselves in courtrooms, facing judges who weren't buying their excuses. "I was just following orders," they said. The judges weren't having it. "I was just a guard," they pleaded. It didn't matter. One by one, these individuals who had participated in systematic murder discovered that the world would hold them accountable. The first wave of trials began almost immediately. Military tribunals were set up across the occupied territories. Evidence was overwhelming: documents, photographs, survivor testimony. The perpetrators had been meticulous in their record-keeping, never imagining those same records would become evidence in their own prosecutions. Take the guards who had beaten prisoners to death for sport. Take the administrators who had organized the killing machinery with cold efficiency. Take the medical personnel who had turned healing into horror. They all learned the same harsh lesson. There would be a reckoning. The sentences came down like thunder. Death penalties for the worst offenders, commandants who oversaw mass murder, guards who tortured prisoners for entertainment, medical staff who conducted horrific experiments. The electric chair, the gallows, firing squads. Justice was swift and final for the worst among them. Life imprisonment awaited others. Those who had operated the machinery of death but hadn't personally pulled triggers found themselves locked away forever. No parole, no early release, no second chances. They would die behind bars, forgotten by the world they had helped destroy. Even the small fish, the guards who claimed they were just doing their jobs, faced decades behind bars. 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. The message was crystal clear. Participating in genocide has consequences, regardless of your rank or role. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Some tried to run. They fled to South America, changed their names, started new lives. They thought they were free. They thought they could escape their past and live quietly as farmers, shopkeepers, ordinary citizens. They were wrong. Justice has a long memory and an even longer reach. Decades later, in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and even into the 2000s, investigators would knock on doors. Elderly men living quiet suburban lives would suddenly find themselves dragged back to face their past. Age was no protection. Time was no excuse. Simon Wiesenthal and other Nazi hunters spent their lives tracking down these fugitives. They followed paper trails across continents, interviewed survivors, matched photographs. One by one, they found them. A retired factory worker in Ohio, former guard. A grandfather in Argentina, former administrator. A quiet pensioner in Canada, former camp personnel. The trials revealed the truth about these people. They weren't mindless robots following orders. They weren't helpless cogs in a machine. They were individuals who made choices, terrible, evil choices. They chose to pull triggers. They chose to operate gas chambers. They chose brutality over humanity. And when confronted with alternatives, when they could have said no, they chose murder instead. The courtroom testimonies were devastating. Survivors, now elderly themselves, would point across the room at their former tormentors. That man, they would say, beat my father to death. That man supervised the selection process. That man experimented on children. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. And when their time came, they faced the consequences. Some went to the electric chair, still claiming innocence, still insisting they were just following orders. Others died in prison, forgotten by everyone except their victims' families and the historians who documented their crimes. A few lived long enough to see their grandchildren learn what Grandpa really did during the war. The beautiful thing about these prosecutions was their persistence. Justice didn't give up. Prosecutors spent decades building cases, tracking down witnesses, following paper trails that led across the globe. They worked with limited resources, aging witnesses, and fading memories, but they never stopped. Even into the 21st century, they were still catching these criminals. Men in their 90s being wheeled into courtrooms to finally answer for their crimes. Oscar Groening, the bookkeeper of Auschwitz, tried at age 93. Friedrich Karlberger, deported from the United States at age 95. Justice delayed but never denied. Every conviction sent the same message. You cannot escape what you've done. You cannot hide behind uniforms or claim you had no choice. You participated in the systematic murder of millions of innocent people, and the world will never forget or forgive that. The guards thought they were untouchable because they wore uniforms. The administrators believed they were just bureaucrats pushing papers. The camp personnel assumed they'd blend back into society after the war ended. They were all catastrophically wrong. Justice found them in courtrooms from Nuremberg to Frankfurt, from Jerusalem to Buenos Aires. These individuals learned that some crimes are so heinous, so fundamentally evil, that there is no statute of limitations, no forgiveness, no escape. Their sentences, death, life imprisonment, decades behind bars, stand as permanent proof that evil actions have consequences. That choosing to participate in genocide will eventually catch up with you. That the world is watching, remembering, and will never stop seeking justice for the innocent victims who deserved so much better. This is the story of accountability. This is what happens when evil people discover that their actions matter. Their choices have consequences, and justice, however delayed, will always find them in the end. The guards learned. The administrators learned. They all learned that evil has a price, and eventually that bill always comes due.